It started as a normal Tuesday night. I was sitting in my office, catching up on emails when a notification popped up on my phone. It was from our home security system. A few months ago, we'd had an attempted break-in. Jenna and I weren't home at the time, but the thought of someone trying to force their way into our house left me paranoid. I'd gone all out, installing cameras in nearly every room and around the perimeter. It was mostly for peace of mind, or so I thought. The notification was harmless enough, motion detected in the living room. Probably the cat knocking something over again, I thought. But I opened the app anyway, more out of habit than concern. What I saw made my blood run cold. The live feed showed Jenna, my wife, on the couch, straddling someone. But it wasn't just anyone. It was Travis, our next-door neighbor. At first, my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. I blinked, hoping it was some kind of glitch or prank. But as the video continued, it became painfully clear that this was real. Jenna, laughing and kissing him, her hands all over him like a woman who didn't have a husband. Travis, the guy who always offered to mow our lawn when I was busy, acting like he owned the place, and my wife. I slammed my laptop shut, my hands shaking. For a moment, I just sat there trying to breathe. My heart was racing, my mind running through every interaction I'd ever had with Travis. How long had this been going on? Was this the first time? My stomach churned as I thought about all the times Jenna had stayed home while I worked late, all the times Travis had come over to help with something around the house. The signs had been there, hadn't they? Little things I brushed off as unimportant. Jenna taking more care with her appearance, laughing a little too hard at Travis's jokes during neighborhood barbecues. And then there were the subtle excuses. Travis was just being nice, Jake, or you're overthinking it. I grabbed my phone again, my thumb hovering over Jenna's contact. Part of me wanted to call her immediately, to scream at her, demand answers. But another part of me, the rational part, knew I needed to stay calm. If I confronted her now, she'd just deny it. Instead, I reopened the app and downloaded the video. Evidence. I wasn't about to let her gaslight me when the truth was staring me in the face. Jenna was out with friends, or so she claimed. I sat in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen, replaying the video in my head. The anger was building with every second, but beneath it was something worse, humiliation. Travis, of all people, the guy who'd lent me his tools, who'd invited me over for beers during the last Super Bowl. How long had he been sneaking into my house when I wasn't around? The sound of Jenna's car pulling into the driveway snapped me out of my thoughts. I clenched my jaw, watching as she walked through the door with a breezy, casual smile. "Hey babe," she said, kicking off her shoes. "How was your day?" I didn't answer. She froze when she saw the look on my face. "What's wrong?" I stood up, pulling my phone out of my pocket. "Sit down," I said, my voice low and cold. Jenna frowned, but obeyed, her expression shifting to one of confusion. "Jake, what's going on?" Without a word, I opened the video and hit play. I watched her face as she realized what she was looking at. Her eyes widened in shock, her hand flying to her mouth. "Care to explain this?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger. Jenna's hand flew to her mouth as the video played, her face turning ghostly pale. For a moment, she just sat there, frozen, her wide eyes glued to the damning footage on my phone. "Care to explain this?" I repeated, my voice sharp and seething. She looked up at me, tears welling in her eyes. "Jake, I can explain," she stammered. "Oh, this should be good," I said, crossing my arms. "Go ahead, Jenna. Explain how my neighbor, the guy who offered to help me fix the fence, somehow ended up screwing my wife on my couch." She stood up, shaking her head frantically. No, you don't understand. It wasn't my fault." "Not your fault?" I snapped, taking a step closer. "Then whose fault is it, Jenna? Did the couch drag you there? Did Travis hold a gun to your head? Or was it the wine that made you forget you're married to me?" Her knees buckled, and she dropped to the floor, sobbing. "Jake, please listen to me." "He forced me," she cried, her hands clasped together like she was praying. "I didn't want to. I swear to God, I didn't want to." I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and cold. "You didn't want to? Really? Because you looked pretty into it on the video, Jenna. You weren't exactly fighting him off." Her tears fell harder, and she crawled toward me on her knees, reaching for my hands. I was scared, she pleaded. He threatened me. He said he'd tell everyone lies about me if I didn't go along with it. Jake, please, you have to believe me. I yanked my hands away, fury boiling over. You expect me to believe that? Do I look like an idiot to you? You're telling me that Travis, our friendly neighborhood handyman, suddenly turned into a predator, and this is the first I'm hearing about it? It's the truth, she sobbed, her face contorted with desperation. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared, Jake. Please, I love you. You have to forgive me. Her words only made the rage burn hotter. Fuck you here. Forgive the woman who had shattered everything we built together, who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I couldn't even look at her without feeling disgusted. Forgive you. I spat, taking a step back. You think groveling on the floor and spinning some pathetic story is going to make this go away? You're unbelievable. She tried to grab my hand again, but something inside me snapped. Without thinking, I lashed out, my palm connecting with her cheek in a sharp, unforgiving slap. The room fell silent. Jenna collapsed onto the floor, cradling her face as fresh tears streamed down her cheeks. I stood there, my chest heaving, staring at my own hand in shock. What have you done to us? I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. Jenna didn't move from the floor, her sobs muffled by her hands. I turned away, pacing the room as the weight of everything crashed down on me. My heart was pounding, my anger still simmering, but guilt began to creep in, clawing at the edges of my mind. This wasn't me. I wasn't the kind of man who raised his hand to a woman, no matter how badly she'd hurt me. But she had lied to me, betrayed me, and now she was feeding me a story that didn't add up. I'm done, I said finally, my voice cold and steady. Hack your things and get out of my house. She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears, her cheek red from where I'd struck her. Jake, please, she whimpered. Don't do this. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, anything you want. Just don't throw me away. Throw you away? I repeated, shaking my head. Jenna, you did that yourself the second you let Travis touch you. There's no coming back from this. She tried to crawl toward me again, but I turned and walked out of the room. I couldn't stand to be near her anymore. I locked myself in my office, slamming the door behind me. My chest heaved, my fists clenched so tight they ached. Outside, I could still hear Jenna sobbing, her muffled cries grating against my already frayed nerves. I leaned against the desk, staring at the security camera footage paused on my laptop. It was all there, proof of what she'd done. Her words rang in my head. He forced me. I didn't want to. But no matter how many times I replayed her excuses, the image on the screen didn't match the story she was trying to sell. There was no fear in her body language, no resistance. She was laughing, for God's sake. Laughing like she didn't have a husband who trusted her, a life she was willing to throw away for a moment of whatever that was with Travis. My phone buzzed on the desk, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from Travis. Jake, we need to talk. Let me explain. Explain? The nerve of him. My finger hovered over the screen, itching to reply, but I couldn't trust myself not to explode. Instead, I blocked his number and set the phone down, trying to steady my breathing. I glanced back at the video on the laptop and hit play, forcing myself to watch it again. Every second was another stab in the chest, but I couldn't look away. Hours passed before I emerged from the office. Jenna was still in the living room, sitting on the couch, her face pale and tears streaked. She flinched when she saw me, her eyes darting to my hands like she was afraid I'd hit her again. I stopped in the doorway, arms crossed. Have you started packing? Her lips trembled. Jake, please. I know I've hurt you, but can we talk about this? Just give me a chance to prove what? I cut her off, my voice cold. That you're a liar? That you're a cheater? You can't prove anything, Jenna, because the evidence is right there. I pointed toward the office, where the video was still loaded on my laptop. She stood up, clutching her arms around herself. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she said softly. I love you, Jake. I swear I do. I made a mistake. I laughed bitterly. A mistake? You didn't trip and fall on a Travis, Jenna. Don't stand there and insult my intelligence. Her tears started again, and for a moment, I thought she might collapse. but I couldn't bring myself to care. I walked past her to the kitchen, grabbing a beer from the fridge. I needed to clear my head, figure out what to do next. As much as I wanted to throw her out right then and there, I knew I had to play it smart. I had the video. I had the proof. Now it was about making sure she didn't take me down with her. First, I called a lawyer. The woman on the other end of the line, a calm and no-nonsense professional named Amanda, listened carefully as I explained the situation. "Do you have any evidence of the affair?" she asked. "Yes," I said, glancing toward the office. "It's all on video." "Good," Amanda replied. "Make sure you keep that secure. If you're planning to file for divorce, it's going to be your strongest leverage." "Do you share any major assets, property, accounts?" "The house," I said, "and the savings account." "Then I suggest you act quickly," she said. "Start separating your finances, document everything, and be prepared for a fight. Affairs like this tend to get messy." Messy. That was putting it lightly. When I hung up, Jenna was standing in the doorway of the kitchen, her eyes red and swollen. She looked like a shell of the woman I'd married, but I couldn't let myself feel sorry for her. "Jake," she said quietly, "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you. Please don't throw this away. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. Just don't give up on us." I stared at her, my grip tightening on the beer bottle in my hand. "Jenna," I said, my voice deadly calm, "you gave up on us the moment you let Travis into this house. There's nothing left to fix." Her shoulders sagged, and for a moment, I thought she might argue. But she just nodded, tears streaming down her face as she turned and walked back to the living room. I didn't follow her. I couldn't. That it was 2 days after I told Jenna to pack her things. I hadn't seen her since that night, and I hadn't gone out of my way to check on her. I'd been living in a fog of anger and exhaustion, trying to piece together my next steps while my lawyer Amanda worked on the divorce paperwork. Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be Jenna with another desperate message, but there had been nothing. So, when I heard a knock on the front door that morning, I wasn't prepared for what greeted me. It was Linda, Jenna's mother. "Jake," she said, her voice heavy with worry. She looked older than I remembered, her usual sharpness replaced with something softer, almost desperate. "Can I come in, please?" I hesitated, gripping the door tighter. "What do you want, Linda?" "It's about Jenna," she said, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "She's in the hospital." The words hit me like a freight train. I stepped back, letting her inside without thinking. Linda sat on the couch, twisting her hands together anxiously. I stood across from her, arms crossed, waiting for her to explain. She collapsed yesterday," Linda said finally, her voice shaking. "The stress, the guilt, it's been eating her alive, Jake. When I found her, she was barely conscious. The doctor said it was dehydration and exhaustion, but I know it's more than that." My chest tightened, but I kept my face neutral. "So what? You came here to tell me it's my fault?" "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "Jake, no. I'm not here to blame you. I'm here because she needs you." I let out a bitter laugh. "She needs me? That's rich. She didn't seem to need me when she was slept Travis on my couch." Linda flinched at my words, but she didn't argue. "I know," she said softly. "What she did was terrible. Unforgivable, even. But Jake, she's my daughter. And no matter how badly she's messed up, I can't just stand by and watch her fall apart." Her voice cracked, and she wiped at her eyes. "She's sorry, Jake. She's more sorry than you'll ever know. She knows she's ruined everything, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. But she can't do it alone." I paced the room, running a hand through my hair. Linda's words stirred something inside me, a faint, unwelcome flicker of doubt. Jenna had betrayed me in the worst possible way, shattered my trust, and lied to my face. But now, the image of her lying in a hospital bed, broken and vulnerable, gnawed at me. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked finally, turning back to Linda. "Because I've seen the way you've loved her," she said simply. "And I know that deep down you still do. You wouldn't be this angry if you didn't care." Her words cut deeper than I wanted to admit. "Linda," I said, my voice firm, "she didn't just mess up. She destroyed everything. Do you have any idea what it's like to watch your wife betray you on video? To see her laughing with another man like you don't even exist?" Linda nodded, her expression filled with sorrow. I can't imagine how much that hurt, Jake. But forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about deciding if what you had is worth trying to save. I stared at her, torn between the anger that still burned in my chest and the small voice in the back of my mind telling me to listen. After Linda left, I sat in the quiet house, staring at my phone. I deleted Jenna's messages and blocked her number, but now I found myself scrolling to the hospital's website, searching for the number. Was this really what I wanted? Forgiving Jenna felt impossible, but letting her spiral into oblivion felt wrong. No matter what she'd done, she was still the woman I'd loved for 10 years. The woman I'd planned a life with. My finger hovered over the call button. Just as my finger hovered over the call button, my phone rang. The screen lit up with an unknown number, but something in me told me to answer. "Hello?" I said, my voice stiff. "Mr. Jake Carter," a woman's voice asked, formal but urgent. "This is him," I replied. "This is Dr. Patel from St. Mary's Hospital," she continued. "I'm calling about your wife, Jenna. She's currently in critical condition, and we need you to come immediately." My stomach dropped. Critical condition? What are you talking about? "She's experiencing severe complications," Dr. Patel said delicately, "and there's a risk of miscarriage. She's 2 months pregnant, and we're doing everything we can to stabilize her, but we need to know if she's under any additional stress," or I stopped listening after the word pregnant. Pregnant. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. The memory hit me like a freight train, Jenna and I on vacation, laughing by the beach. For the first time in months, we'd felt like ourselves again, like the couple who had once been so madly in love. Had that been the moment? "I'll be there," I said, barely able to get the words out before ending the call. When I arrived at the hospital, Linda was already in the waiting room, her face a mask of worry. She stood when she saw me, clutching her hands together. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling. It's bad." I ignored her and went straight to the nurse's station. "I need to see my wife," I said, my tone sharper than I intended. The nurse led me to a private room where Jenna lay hooked up to monitors, pale and weak. Her eyes fluttered open when she heard me, and the sight of her like that, so fragile, so far from the woman who had always been so full of life, made my chest tighten. "Jake," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I stood at the edge of the bed, my fists clenched. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice low but trembling. "About the baby?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I was going to," she said, "but everything happened so fast. I didn't know how to," don't I snapped, cutting her off. "Don't you dare make excuses. You've been lying to me for weeks about everything, and now you're pregnant, and I have to find out from a doctor. How much more were you planning to hide from me, Jenna?" She broke down, sobbing into her hands. "I didn't want to lose you," she choked out. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I couldn't bear the thought of you leaving. And now I might lose the baby too." Her words sliced through my anger like a blade. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at her, the weight of everything pressing down on me. As much as I hated her for what she'd done, the truth was undeniable. This was still my child. Our child. And no matter how broken our marriage was, I couldn't walk away from that. I took a deep breath and sat down beside her, the tension in my body easing just slightly. "What did the doctors say?" I asked. She sniffled, wiping at her tears. "They said the stress, it's making things worse. They're trying to stabilize me, but it's touch and go." Her words hit hard. The stress, the fights, the betrayal, all of it had been building to this moment, and now an innocent life was caught in the middle. I placed my hand over hers, surprising both of us. "I'm not doing this for you," I said firmly. "I'm doing it for the baby. Whatever happens between us, I'll be here for our child. But don't think for a second that this fixes anything." Jenna nodded, her tears spilling over again. "Thank you," she whispered. The next few hours were a blur. Doctors and nurses came and went, checking on Jenna, monitoring the baby. I stayed by her side, silent but present, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. By the time the situation stabilized and Jenna was out of immediate danger, the exhaustion hit me like a tidal wave. As I sat in the chair by her bed, watching her sleep, I couldn't help but reflect on how everything had spiraled out of control. Forgiveness still felt impossible, but walking away didn't seem like an option anymore. not with a child in the picture. One thing was certain, life would never be the same. In the end, there are no easy answers. Betrayal changes everything, but when a life hangs in the balance, the lines between right and wrong blur. What would you do in my shoes?